The silent vanguard. Admiral Elena Santos stood at the helm of the HSS Night Whisper, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the approaching Nexar diplomatic fleet. Their crystalline ships sparkled like jewels against the backdrop of space, a dazzling display of what the self-proclaimed masters of the galaxy considered technological superiority, if they only knew what lurked in the shadows of their arrogance. "Status report on the quantum cloak," she commanded, her voice steady despite the weight of humanity's greatest secret resting on her shoulders. "Holding stable, Admiral," Lieutenant Kai Chen responded from his station. "The Nexar's conventional scanners are reading us exactly as intended, a primitive exploration vessel with barely functional warp capabilities." Elena allowed herself a small smile. For 50 years, humanity had maintained this elaborate charade, presenting themselves to the galaxy as a fledgling spacefaring species, while secretly developing technology that would reshape the understanding of physics itself. The quantum manipulation drive wasn't just an advancement over the Nexar's crystalline technology. It was an entirely different paradigm of space travel. The bridge of the Night Whisper hummed with barely contained energy as the quantum cores maintained their perfect resonance. Unlike the flashy crystalline technology of the Nexar, humanity's ships were studies in subtlety. The Night Whisper's hull absorbed light rather than reflected it, its surface composed of metamaterials that could alter their properties at the quantum level. "They're hailing us," Communications Officer Maya Patil announced, her augmented neural interface processing the incoming signal. "Standard diplomatic frequencies. They're not even bothering to encrypt it." "Of course not," Elena murmured. Why would the mighty Nexar Empire waste advanced protocols on primitive humans? She straightened her uniform, a simple design that helped sell the illusion of humanity's technological infancy. "Put them through." The holographic display shimmered, revealing the towering form of Ambassador Xerlac, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the light of distant stars. 4 pairs of eyes studied Elena with barely concealed disdain. "Greetings, human vessel." The ambassador's translated voice resonated through the bridge. "We come bearing great news. The Nexar Empire has deemed your species worthy of elevation to protectorate status. Your primitive attempts at space travel have caught our attention, and we wish to guide you toward proper civilization." Elena maintained her carefully practiced expression of awe and gratitude, even as her tactical display showed the positions of 30 cloaked human vessels surrounding the Nexar fleet. "Ambassador Xerlac, this is an unexpected honor. We had no idea our humble achievements had drawn the attention of such an advanced civilization." The ambassador's crystalline features shifted in what Elena recognized as their species' expression of smug satisfaction. "Your recent achievement of faster-than-light travel, however crude, indicates your species has potential. Under our guidance, you might achieve in centuries what took other races millennia." "Your generosity overwhelms us," Elena replied, while her neural interface silently coordinated with the hidden fleet. "However, such an important decision would require consultation with Earth's governing council." "Consultation?" Xerlac's tone hardened. "Perhaps I wasn't clear, human. This is not an offer. It is an announcement. The Nexar Empire has claimed this sector, and your species will submit to our protection. The alternative would be unfortunate." Elena's expression didn't waver, even as her tactical officers confirmed target locks on every Nexar vessel. Humanity had spent 50 years preparing for this moment, knowing the Nexar Empire's pattern of forced protectorates would eventually bring them to Earth. "I understand, Ambassador," she said softly. "Then let me make an announcement of my own." She paused, allowing herself to savor this moment. "Computer, disengage quantum cloak. Show them what humanity really is." The facade of the primitive exploration vessel melted away, revealing the true form of the Night Whisper, a sleek, obsidian warship nearly twice the size of the Nexar flagship. Around them, 30 other vessels shimmered into existence, their quantum drives humming with power that the Nexar's sensors couldn't even comprehend. The ambassador's crystalline form vibrated with shock. "What is this deception? Impossible." "No, Ambassador," Elena replied, standing tall as her ship's quantum weapons came online. "This is humanity showing you what we've chosen to hide. You see, we've been watching your empire for decades, studying your technology, your tactics, your arrogance. And we decided that when you finally came to elevate us, we'd be ready to teach you a lesson about underestimating primitive species." The quantum drives of the human fleet pulsed in perfect synchronization, creating a web of gravitational distortions that the Nexer ships couldn't hope to escape. Elena's voice carried the weight of 50 years of preparation as she delivered humanity's real message to the galaxy. "Welcome to Earth space, Ambassador. Now shall we discuss the terms of your surrender?" Deception's edge. In the tense silence following Admiral Santos' ultimatum, the quantum cores of the human fleet pulsed with barely contained power. Ambassador Exerlax's crystalline form had lost its lustrous shine, now dulled by the shocking revelation of humanity's true capabilities. "You dare threaten the Nexer Empire?" Exerlax's translated voice wavered between outrage and disbelief. "Our fleet will arrive within hours." "You mean the fleet gathering in the Proxima Centauri system?" Elena interrupted, nodding to Maya. The communications officer brought up a holographic display showing real-time footage of a massive Nexar armada, surrounded by more uncloaked human vessels. "We've been tracking them since they entered our space 3 days ago. Did you really think we wouldn't notice?" In the command center deep beneath Earth's surface, Director Marcus Chen watched the confrontation unfold through his neural interface. 50 years of careful planning, of maintaining the facade of a primitive species, had led to this moment. He turned to the gathered leaders of the Earth Defense Council. "Phase 1 is proceeding as anticipated," he reported. "The Nexer's response matches our psychological profiles exactly. Their pride won't allow them to believe they've been fooled so completely." Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, head of the Quantum Physics Division, pulled up the latest sensor data. "The quantum web is holding stable. Their crystalline drives won't be able to initiate any form of FTL travel within its influence. We've effectively trapped both their diplomatic fleet and their invasion force." The deception had been masterful in its simplicity. While humanity paraded around in ships designed to look primitive, they had seeded every major system with quantum observation posts. The Nexer's crystalline technology, for all its apparent advancement, was painfully obvious to quantum sensors. Every movement, every communication, every strategic decision had been monitored and analyzed. Back on the Night Whisper, Elena watched as the ambassador's composure cracked further. "Your civilization has barely mastered space travel," he protested. "We've monitored your progress for years." "No," Elena corrected him. "You monitored what we wanted you to see. Those clumsy early attempts at FTL, carefully staged shows, the public broadcasts about our technological struggles, theater for your benefit. While you watched our supposed fumbling attempts to reach the stars, we were already far beyond your understanding of physics." Lieutenant Chen's console lit up with new data. "Admiral, we're detecting energy spikes from their weapon systems. They're attempting to power up their main crystal arrays." Elena didn't even flinch. "Let them try. Maya, show them what happens to crystalline technology within a quantum disruption field." The Nexer ship's crystal arrays began to glow with accumulated energy, then abruptly dimmed, their resonance patterns disrupted at the quantum level. Humanity had spent decades studying the fundamental weaknesses of crystalline technology, developing countermeasures that rendered it useless. What have you done?" Exerlax demanded, his translator struggling to convey the mix of fear and anger in his voice. "We've simply introduced a little quantum chaos into your crystalline matrix," Elena explained, her tone almost educational. "Your technology relies on perfect atomic alignment in your crystal structures. Our quantum fields can disrupt that alignment faster than your systems can compensate. In essence, Ambassador, we've turned your greatest strength into your greatest vulnerability." In the Earth Defense Council chamber, Marcus received confirmation that the quantum web had fully encompassed both Nexer fleets. "Initialize Phase 2, he ordered. Show them exactly what they're dealing with. Across both confrontation points, the human ships began to shift. The quantum metamaterials comprising their hulls restructured themselves at the atomic level, revealing their true nature. Gone were the bulky, primitive designs, replaced by vessels that seemed to bend the very fabric of space around them. You see, Ambassador, Elena continued, humanity learned long ago that the best way to advance wasn't to follow the established paths of technology. While the galaxy focused on crystalline engineering, we explored quantum manipulation. While you built bigger ships, we learned to fold space. While you perfected energy weapons, we learned to control reality itself. The Night Whisper's sensors detected multiple attempts by the Nexar ships to send quantum-entangled communications to their home systems. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Let them try. Humanity's quantum interference made such communications impossible within their sphere of influence. Your choice is simple, she stated. Surrender now, and we can begin honest diplomatic relations between our civilizations. Continue this aggression, and we'll be forced to demonstrate just how far beyond your understanding our technology really is. Either way, the era of Nexar supremacy ends today. As she waited for the ambassador's response, Elena reflected on humanity's long game. They had played the role of primitive newcomers perfectly, letting the Nexar's own arrogance blind them to the truth. Now, as the quantum web tightened around both fleets, she wondered if the ambassador would choose wisdom over pride. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance, and humanity held all the cards. Cards they had spent 50 years carefully concealing until this perfect moment of revelation. Breaking the chains. Ambassador Exerlac's response came in the form of action rather than words. Despite the quantum disruption field, the Nexar flagship launched a desperate barrage of crystalline energy weapons at the Night Whisper. The beams dissipated harmlessly against the quantum-shifted hull, leaving not even a trace of impact. A regrettable choice, Elena murmured. She opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, execute Phase 3. Minimal casualties, maximum impact. Show them what humanity can really do. The quantum web surrounding both Nexar fleets began to pulse with new energy patterns. In the Proxima Centauri system, the larger invasion force found their ships suddenly unable to maintain stable positions as space itself seemed to ripple around them. Director Marcus Chen watched from Earth Command as the carefully orchestrated plan unfolded. Quantum displacement fields are operating at optimal efficiency, he reported to the Defense Council. The Nexar ships are effectively trapped in localized space-time distortions. In the command center, Dr. Rodriguez's quantum interfaces lit up with streaming data. Their crystalline cores are attempting to compensate, but they can't handle the spatial fluctuations. We're seeing cascading failures across their fleet. The Nexar's mighty warships, pride of their empire, hung helpless in space as humanity's quantum technology rewrote the rules of physics around them. Their crystal drives, designed to work with stable spacetime, found themselves trying to function in an environment where the very fabric of reality refused to behave predictably. On the Night Whisper's bridge, Lieutenant Chen reported, "Admiral, the enemy flagship is attempting to initiate their emergency protocols. They're trying to overload their crystal cores." Elena's expression hardened. They'd rather destroy themselves than admit defeat. Maya, open a channel to all Nexar vessels. Channel open. Admiral. This is Admiral Santos to all Nexar ships. We've contained your core overload protocols. Your weapons are useless. Your drives are offline, and your communications are blocked. But notice that we haven't destroyed a single vessel. We could have annihilated your fleet the moment you entered our space, but we chose not to. Ask yourselves why. In the silence that followed, the quantum web continued its work, slowly but surely neutralizing every system on the Nexar vessels. Their mighty dreadnoughts, each capable of devastating entire solar systems, were reduced to floating hulks of crystal and metal. Ambassador Exerlac's voice, when it finally came, had lost all its previous arrogance. Why? Why maintain this deception? Why allow us to believe you were primitive? Elena rose from her command chair, her dark eyes fixed on the ambassador's holographic image. Because humanity learned its lessons from history. When technologically superior civilizations encounter less advanced ones, the results are rarely peaceful. We saw how your empire treated other primitive species, so we chose to hide our true capabilities until we could be certain of victory. The quantum sensors detected more attempts by individual Nexar ships to break free, each one failing as the quantum fields adapted and contained them. Humanity's technology wasn't just more advanced. It operated on principles the Nexar couldn't even detect, let alone counter. Your empire's greatest weakness, Elena continued, wasn't your technology. It was your certainty that you were superior. That certainty made you predictable. Every move you've made since entering our space was anticipated and planned for decades ago. In Earth Command, Marcus received confirmation that the quantum containment was complete. Both Nexar fleets were fully neutralized, their mighty crystal drives reduced to inert matrices by the quantum interference fields. Admiral Santos, he communicated through their secure quantum link. You are clear to proceed with final negotiations. Elena's voice carried the weight of humanity's long-planned revelation as she addressed the Nexar fleet again. Here are our terms. The Nexar Empire will immediately cease all military operations in Earth-controlled space. You will acknowledge humanity's sovereign right to exist free of your protection. And you will begin immediate discussions about releasing your other protectorate worlds from their forced servitude. She paused, letting the magnitude of the situation sink in. In return, we will share some of our quantum technology with you, not as masters or conquerors, but as equals. Your empire can continue to exist, Ambassador, but the age of Nexar supremacy is over. The galaxy is about to learn that humanity has been awake and watching for a very long time. The quantum web pulsed one final time, a demonstration of power that sent ripples through space-time itself. In that moment, as the Nexar fleet hung powerless among the stars, the balance of power in the galaxy shifted irreversibly. Humanity had revealed itself not as the primitive species playing at spaceflight, but as the silent watchers who had outpaced their would-be conquerors in every way that mattered. The chains of imperial dominance were breaking, and in their place, a new order was about to emerge, one where humanity's patience and ingenuity had earned them not just survival, but victory. Quantum Storm. The silence that followed Admiral Santos' ultimatum lasted precisely 3 seconds before chaos erupted across both fleets. A rogue Nexar captain, his pride overwhelming his judgment, initiated a desperate gambit that would forever change the course of the confrontation. Multiple energy spikes detected. Lieutenant Chen's voice cut through the tension. The Nexar dreadnought Crystalline Dawn is attempting to overload their entire crystal matrix. Elena's response was immediate. Quantum containment fields at maximum. Direct all excess power to localized space-time manipulation. We're not losing anyone today, not even our enemies. The space around the Crystalline Dawn began to twist and fold as humanity's quantum technology engaged at full power. The massive dreadnought's attempt at self-destruction was met with an overwhelming display of space-time manipulation that even the Nexar's most advanced sensors struggled to comprehend. In Earth Command, Dr. Rodriguez's hands flew across her quantum interface. The energy buildup in their crystal matrix is beyond critical. If it breaches, it won't. Director Chen interrupted, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Watch. The Night Whisper's quantum drives pulsed with unprecedented power, creating a bubble of altered reality around the Nexar vessel. Inside this bubble, the laws of physics themselves bent to humanity's will. The crystal matrix's attempt at overload found itself fighting against space-time that refused to propagate the chain reaction. By the eternal crystal, Ambassador Exerlax's whispered words carried across the command channel. What are you? Elena stood at her command station, her voice steady as she responded. We are humanity, Ambassador. We are what happens when a species spends centuries preparing for the moment they'd have to defend themselves against the unknown. The quantum storm you're witnessing, it's just the beginning of what we can do. Across the battlefield, more Nexar ships attempted to break free of the quantum containment field, their crystal drives pushing against the boundaries of their altered space. Each attempt was met with precise, calculated responses from the human fleet. The quantum web didn't just hold them. It adapted, learned, and grew stronger with each challenge. "Admiral," Maya called out, "we're detecting quantum fluctuations from their secondary fleet. They're trying to synchronize their crystal matrices to amplify their power output." Elena allowed herself a small smile. Exactly as the simulations predicted. "Lieutenant Chen, initiate Protocol Omega. Let's show them why that was a mistake." The human fleet's formation shifted, their ships moving in patterns that seemed to defy conventional spacetime. The quantum web surrounding the Nexar fleet began to pulse with new energy patterns, creating a cascading series of reality distortions that turned the synchronized crystal matrices against themselves. In Earth Command, Marcus watched as the quantum sensors displayed the full scope of what was happening. The Nexar's attempt at synchronization is playing right into our hands. Their crystal matrices are becoming quantum entangled through our containment field. And once they're entangled, Dr. Rodriguez continued, her eyes widening at the implications. "We control them all," Marcus finished. The space battle had become a demonstration of humanity's mastery over quantum physics. The Nexar's mighty fleet, with all its crystalline technology and ancient knowledge, found itself caught in a web of humanity's making. Their synchronized attempt at breaking free had only served to bind them more tightly to the quantum field's influence. "Your ships are now quantum-locked," Elena announced to the Nexar fleet. "Every crystal matrix in your fleet is entangled with our containment field. Any attempt to break free will only strengthen the connection." "This is the power you didn't know existed, Ambassador. The power you never thought to look for while you were busy judging us as primitives." The quantum storm reached its peak, a spectacular display of humanity's technology that lit up space with distortions visible even to the naked eye. The Nexar fleet hung suspended in their altered pocket of reality, their mighty weapons and advanced drives reduced to little more than beautiful ornaments. "The choice remains yours," Elena continued, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's long-prepared revelation. "But know this, every second you delay, every futile attempt to resist, only proves further that humanity has surpassed everything you thought you knew about the universe. We don't want to be your enemies, but we will never be your subjects." The quantum storm began to settle, leaving the Nexar fleet intact but completely neutralized. In its wake, a new reality was emerging, one where humanity's patience and ingenuity had rewritten the balance of power in the galaxy. The ancient empire's assumption of supremacy had been shattered, replaced by the undeniable proof that they were no longer the most advanced civilization among the stars. As the quantum field stabilized around both fleets, Elena prepared for the next phase of humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage. The storm had passed, but its effects would ripple through the cosmos for centuries to come. Dawn of a new era. 3 days after the quantum storm, the Grand Conference Chamber of the Night Whisper hosted a gathering that would reshape galactic civilization. Ambassador Exerlac, along with the commanding officers of the Nexar fleet, sat across from Admiral Elena Santos and the human delegation. The crystalline walls of their once mighty ships still pulsed with a subtle quantum resonance, a reminder of humanity's overwhelming technological superiority. "The terms of this agreement are unprecedented," Exerlac stated, his translator struggling to convey the complex emotions in his voice. The Empire has never faced a force like humanity." Elena completed the thought. "But that's precisely why these terms will work. We're not interested in conquest or dominion. We want partnership, not subjugation." Director Marcus Chen's holographic form nodded from his position at the conference table. "Our quantum technology has applications far beyond warfare. Imagine what we could accomplish if we combined your crystalline engineering with our understanding of quantum mechanics." The implications weren't lost on anyone present. Humanity's quantum manipulation technology had rendered the Nexar's most powerful weapons useless, but it could also revolutionize everything from space travel to energy production. It was an offer of evolution rather than submission. Dr. Rodriguez, now leading the technological integration team, brought up a holographic display showing the potential applications. The quantum crystal hybrid systems we've developed in secret could solve energy crises across 1,000 worlds. Your empire wouldn't be ending, Ambassador. It would be transforming. In the days following the confrontation, news had spread rapidly through the galaxy. The quantum containment of the Nexer fleet had been witnessed by countless observation posts and trading vessels. The myth of Nexer invincibility had been shattered, replaced by stories of humanity's incredible technological leap. Your protectorate worlds are already calling for independence, Alina noted, bringing up reports from across Nexer space. But instead of fighting a losing battle to maintain control, you could lead the transition to a new galactic order, one based on cooperation rather than conquest. Exerlac's crystalline form shifted, reflecting the internal struggle between generations of imperial doctrine and the undeniable reality before him. And if we refuse, if the Empire chooses to fight? Alina's expression remained calm, but her words carried weight. Then we would be forced to demonstrate even more of our capabilities. The quantum storm you witnessed was just a fraction of what we can do. We've spent 50 years preparing for every possible scenario, Ambassador. Don't make us use those preparations. In Earth Command, the Defense Council watched the negotiations unfold. Humanity's long game was entering its final phase. The decades of hiding, of playing the primitive species while developing technologies beyond even the Nexer's comprehension, were paying off in ways they had only hoped for. The quantum crystal hybrid technology is the key, Marcus explained to the assembled delegates. Your empire's influence doesn't have to end. It just needs to evolve. Help us bring this technology to every world in the galaxy. Be part of the solution rather than clinging to old power structures. The conference chamber fell silent as Exerlac rose, his crystalline form catching the light in ways that seemed to symbolize the choice before him. When he spoke, his words would mark the beginning of a new era in galactic history. The Nexer Empire has stood for 10,000 years, he began, but never in our history have we encountered a species like humanity. You could have destroyed us. Instead, you offer partnership. You could demand surrender, yet you extend opportunity. He paused, his form pulsing with acceptance. Perhaps this is why the eternal crystal guided us to Earth, not for conquest, but for transformation. The agreement that followed would become known as the Quantum Accord. The Nexer Empire would transition from a dominion of force to a confederation of equals. Humanity's quantum technology would be shared, but not freely given. Each world would need to demonstrate its commitment to peaceful cooperation. As Alina watched the ambassador sign the historic document, she reflected on humanity's journey. They had hidden their true nature not out of fear, but out of wisdom. They had developed their technology not for conquest, but for protection. And now, they would guide the galaxy not through force, but through innovation and cooperation. A new dawn for the galaxy, she mused, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed like barriers or battlefields, but bridges to a better future. The quantum web that had contained the Nexer fleet now served as a symbol of humanity's approach to galactic politics, powerful but protective, advanced but accessible to those ready to embrace change. The age of empire was ending. The age of quantum civilization was about to begin. And humanity, the species that had pretended to be primitive while quietly revolutionizing the laws of physics themselves, would lead the way into this new era, not as conquerors, but as teachers, partners, and guardians of a transformed galactic society. The impossible ship. Grand Admiral Zex Terrell stood motionless before the massive viewport of the Draconid Imperium's Supreme Council chamber. His scales, normally a vibrant purple-green, had dulled to an ashen gray, a physiological response his species displayed when experiencing extreme distress. Behind him, 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy waited in uncomfortable silence. "Play it again," he ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. The holographic projection in the center of the chamber flickered to life for the sixth time. A Draconid officer, panic evident in his four eyes, appeared amid static and distortion. "Patrol Fleet Sigma to High Command." The officer gasped. "We've encountered an unknown vessel in Sectors 7 to 12. Configuration unlike anything in our database. We attempted standard containment protocol, but..." A blinding flash lit up the officer's face. Alarms blared in the background. "By the void, its propulsion system. It's impossible. The weapons, they're not registering on our scanners before impact." The officer looked directly into the camera, mandibles quivering. "Those can't be human ships. Humans don't have technology like that." The transmission dissolved into static. High Counselor Vexmora, eldest of the council, leaned forward on her anti-gravity platform. "This is the fourth patrol fleet to disappear near Sol System's outer boundary in a standard cycle. We can no longer ignore this. Anomaly." "Anomaly," snapped Admiral Zexteril, turning to face the council. 16 cruisers, 42 support vessels, and over 20,000 crew, gone. This is no anomaly. This is an act of war." "By whom?" asked Counselor Drezkilar, his tendrils twitching with irritation. "The humans. The same species whose atmospheric vessels still rely on chemical combustion. The ones who haven't even established a permanent settlement beyond their own moon." "That's what they wanted us to believe," said the Admiral quietly. "We've been deceived." "Impossible," said High Commander Orzvex, the Imperium's Chief of Intelligence. "We've had observation posts in their system for over 60 orbital cycles. Their technological progress has been precisely what we expected: slow, inefficient, chaotic. Their political structures remain fractured. There is no indication they could develop technology capable of this." The chamber doors parted, and a slender Draconid female entered. Her scales bore the distinctive blue patterns of the science division. She carried a data crystal which she inserted into the chamber's central console without ceremony. "Chief Scientist Mazkara," acknowledged High Counselor Vexmora. "Your findings?" "Disturbing, to say the least," replied Mazkara. "We've analyzed the quantum residue from the encounter site. The energy signature doesn't match any known propulsion system in our archives, or those of any species in the concordance." The hologram shifted to display a swirling pattern of energy that pulsed in an unpredictable rhythm. "It appears to operate on principles we've theorized but never achieved, a form of space-time manipulation that doesn't require traditional warp fields or hyperspace corridors. It simply folds reality around itself." "That's not possible," whispered Admiral Zexteril. "Our best scientists have concluded such technology would require energy sources beyond anything currently attainable." "Yes," nodded Mazkara. "That has been our understanding for the past 3,000 cycles." The implication hung heavy in the air. "How?" demanded Counselor Drezkilar. "How could a species barely a century into their space age suddenly develop technology that surpasses our own?" No one answered. No one could. Dr. Elena Reyes stared at the equations floating in the holographic display above her workstation. The underground facility hummed around her, the sound of humanity's desperation given physical form. 5 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean, Icarus Base housed 6,000 of Earth's brightest minds. Scientists, engineers, and soldiers united by a single purpose: survival. The door to her lab slid open. Elena didn't need to look up to know who it was. Only one person had the authority to enter without announcing themselves. "Commander Jensen," she acknowledged, still focused on her calculations. Commander Cal Jensen moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had carried the weight of impossible decisions for too long. His dark hair was cropped short, regulation style, but the lines around his eyes spoke of sleepless nights and constant vigilance. "Doctor," he replied, coming to stand beside her. "Progress." Elena gestured at the hologram. The quantum entanglement drive performed beyond expectations in the last encounter. "We were able to transition from normal space to fold state and back within 0.32 seconds. almost twice as fast as our projections. And the Draconids never knew what hit them, Elena said, allowing herself a grim smile. Their sensors were designed to detect conventional warp signatures or hyperspace window formations. The QED doesn't generate either. To them, we're essentially a ghost. Jensen nodded, studying the data. Casualties. None on our side. The Phantom performed flawlessly. Elena finally looked up at him. As for the Draconids, total fleet loss. 16 vessels, approximately 20,000 personnel. Jensen's expression remained neutral, but Elena could see the conflict in his eyes. He was a soldier, trained to protect humanity at all costs, but not a killer by nature. None of them were. That had been the Draconids' first mistake, assuming that humanity's fractious nature and compassionate tendencies made them weak. The Council is meeting now, Jensen said after a moment. The Draconids will be discussing their response. They still don't know it's us, Elena pointed out. The transmissions we've intercepted suggest they're still trying to convince themselves that humans couldn't possibly be responsible. Their arrogance works in our favor, Jensen agreed, but it won't last. Sooner or later, they'll connect the dots. Elena closed the holographic display with a gesture. By then, Project Icarus will be ready for Phase 2. Jensen raised an eyebrow. The production line is operational. As of 600 this morning, 5 new Phantom-class vessels are under construction. If we maintain current efficiency, all 5 will be ready within 2 months. And they'll all have the same capabilities. The same advantages. Elena understood his hesitation. What they had discovered, what they had integrated into the Phantom systems, was beyond revolutionary. It was paradigm-shifting. And deeply, deeply dangerous. Yes, she answered quietly. Each one will carry a fragment. Jensen's gaze drifted to the far wall of the lab, where a reinforced vault door stood. Behind that door, in a chamber lined with exotic materials and energy fields that had taken years to perfect, lay the source of humanity's unexpected leap forward. They called it the Cipher. High Commander Orzvex moved through the corridors of the observation post on Mars' smaller moon, Deimos. Disguised as a natural formation, the facility had monitored Earth for decades, cataloging the species' development with clinical detachment. "Show me the latest intelligence," he ordered as he entered the command center. The chief observer, a mid-ranking officer named Rezinar, brought up a series of images on the main display. These are live feeds from our various monitoring points on the human homeworld. As you can see, nothing unusual. Their space program continues its modest pace. Their military vessels remain confined to their oceans. Their communications networks discuss the same trivial matters. Orzvex studied the images carefully. The humans appeared exactly as they always had, busy with their short lives, unaware of the greater galactic community, and certainly not behaving like a species that had just destroyed 4 Draconid patrol fleets. What about their research facilities? Any unusual energy signatures? Resource allocations? Nothing significant, replied Rezinar. We've detected the expected advances in their primitive fusion technology, continued experimentation with their particle accelerators, and the usual military research. Nothing approaching the capability demonstrated by the unknown vessel. Orzvex felt the uncomfortable sensation of doubt creeping up his spine. The Imperium had encountered thousands of species in its long history. Some had been conquered. Others had been absorbed into the Concordance as subordinate members. A few had been deemed too primitive for contact and placed under observation. Earth had fallen into the latter category. A young world with a dominant species just beginning to explore beyond its atmosphere. The standard protocol was clear: monitor, assess, and intervene only if they develop technology that might threaten Imperium interests. And their oceans? Orzvex asked suddenly. Rezinar blinked in confusion. The oceans, Commander? Yes. What percentage of their oceans do we actively monitor? The observer hesitated. We focus our resources on their population centers, military installations, and research facilities. The oceans are largely automated surveillance only, primarily for tracking their naval movements. And the deep oceans, the trenches. We don't actively monitor those areas, Commander. The humans themselves barely explore those regions. They're largely uninhabitable and technologically challenging even for us to maintain persistent surveillance. Orzvex felt a cold realization settle over him. Show me a map of all Draconid patrol fleet disappearances overlaid with the human planet's ocean mapping. When the display changed, the pattern was unmistakable. Each patrol fleet had vanished at points that, when connected, formed a perfect pentagon around Earth, with each point directly above one of the planet's deepest ocean trenches. I want deep scanning probes deployed immediately, Orzvex ordered, his voice tight with urgency. Target all oceanic trenches deeper than 5,000 of their meters. But, Commander, that would violate our non-interference protocols. The humans might detect. The humans, Orzvex interrupted, are not what we thought they were. Deploy the probes. Now. Aboard the Phantom, Commander Jensen settled into the command chair. Unlike the bright, sterile bridges of conventional military vessels, the Phantom's command center was dimly lit, designed to reduce eye strain during the disorienting transitions of quantum entanglement jumps. Status report, he ordered. Lieutenant Commander Amaradiello, his executive officer, responded crisply. All systems nominal, Commander. QED drive at 98% efficiency. Weapon systems fully charged. Stealth systems active. Any sign we've been detected? Negative, sir. The Draconid observation post on Deimos remains unaware of our presence. Jensen nodded, studying the tactical display. The Phantom hung in space just beyond Mars, completely invisible to conventional sensors. Tall, composed of metamaterials that absorbed rather than reflected scanning beams, appeared as nothing more than background radiation to Draconid technology. New contact, reported Lieutenant Park from the sensor station. Draconid science vessel entering Sol system. Configuration suggests deep space scanning capability. Jensen frowned. They're getting suspicious. Sir, Park continued, the science vessel is deploying probes. Trajectory suggests they're targeting Earth's ocean trenches. A tense silence fell over the bridge. If the Draconids discovered Icarus base, if they realized what humanity had found and how they had used it, the response would be immediate and devastating. They're faster learners than we gave them credit for, Jensen said finally. How long until those probes reach Earth? At current velocity, approximately 43 hours, replied Diallo. Jensen tapped a command into his console, bringing up the secure communication channel. Alina's face appeared on the small screen. They know, he said without preamble. Not everything, but enough to start looking in the right places. We need to accelerate the timeline. Alina's expression remained composed, but Jensen could see the calculation happening behind her eyes. The other Phantoms aren't ready, she said. We need at least 3 weeks for basic functionality, and even then. We don't have 3 weeks, Jensen interrupted. We have 2 days, maybe less. Alina was silent for a moment. Then we move to contingency Omega, she said finally. I'll inform the project council. Jensen terminated the connection and looked up at his bridge crew. 6 faces stared back at him, awaiting orders. 6 humans representing the last, desperate hope of their species. Set course for the Draconid science vessel, he ordered. Prepare for direct engagement. As the Phantom systems hummed to life around him, Jensen thought about the path that had led them here. 10 years ago, a research submersible exploring the Mariana Trench had discovered something impossible, a perfectly preserved artifact of non-human origin, buried in sediment layers that dated back over 2 million years. The cipher, as they came to call it, wasn't just technology. It was information, pure, raw, condensed knowledge about the fundamental structure of reality itself. Information that, when finally deciphered, had revealed a terrible truth. Earth was not unknown to the galaxy. It was quarantined. And the Draconid Imperium was merely the latest in a long line of custodians tasked with ensuring humanity never escaped its prison. The Phantom accelerated silently into the void, carrying with it humanity's answer to that ancient sentence: defiance. The Reckoning. Grand Fleet Commander Xanvor of the Draconid Imperium stood on the command deck of the Indomitable, the most powerful warship ever constructed by his species. Around him, a fleet of over 300 vessels assembled in tight formation, a display of overwhelming force meant to crush any resistance before it could form. Their target, Sol System, home of the troublesome humans. "All ships report ready, Commander," announced his second, Sub-Commander Trazkal. Jump coordinates locked on the human homeworld. Xanvor's crest flared with anticipation. After weeks of debate in the High Council, the decision had been made. Whatever technology the humans had somehow acquired, stolen, more likely, would be confiscated. Their industrial centers would be bombarded from orbit. Their population centers would be spared, but their leadership would be removed and replaced with Imperium governors. A standard conquest, by all measures. "Begin the jump sequence," Xanvor ordered. All ships to battle stations. The massive fleet shimmered as their hyperspace engines engaged, tearing holes in the fabric of space. In moments, they would emerge near Earth's moon, establishing a blockade before the humans could even comprehend what was happening. Except they didn't emerge near Earth's moon. Instead, the fleet found itself scattered across an unfamiliar star system. Alarms blared across the command deck as officers scrambled to identify their location. "Report," demanded Xanvor. "Sir, hyperspace coordinates were altered during transit," replied the navigation officer, confusion evident in her voice. "We're in the Verilis system, nearly 30 light-years from our intended destination." "Impossible," snarled Xanvor. "Our navigational systems cannot be tampered with during a jump. It violates the fundamental principles of hyperspace travel." "Sir," interrupted the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast on our secure command frequency." Xanvor felt his scales tighten against his body, a defensive reaction to imminent threat. "How?" "That frequency is encrypted with quantum algorithms." "Put it on screen." The main view screen flickered, revealing a human face. The being looked utterly unremarkable. Pink-skinned, dark-haired, with the usual 2 eyes, and no distinguishing features that Xanvor could discern. "Greetings, Grand Fleet Commander Xanvor," said the human in perfect Draconid speech. "I am Commander Cal Jensen of Earth. Welcome to what you call the Verilis system, what we call your new reality." Aboard the Phantom, Jensen maintained a calm expression despite the tension coursing through his body. The holographic projection system was transmitting his image to every vessel in the Draconid fleet simultaneously, thanks to the Cipher's understanding of their communication protocols. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded the Draconid commander, his reptilian features contorted in what Jensen recognized as a combination of rage and confusion. "You intended to invade our home," Jensen replied simply. "We decided against allowing that." The Draconid's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a sign of intense concentration. "How did you redirect an entire fleet's hyperspace jump? Such technology doesn't exist." "A common refrain from your kind," Jensen observed. "Humans don't have ships like that." "Humans couldn't possibly understand hyperspace manipulation." "Perhaps you should consider that your assumptions about us have been fundamentally flawed from the beginning." Lieutenant Diallo motioned silently from her station. On a secondary screen, Jensen could see that multiple Draconid vessels were powering up their weapon systems. "Let me be clear," Jensen continued, his voice hardening. "Your fleet is currently isolated. The Verilis system contains no habitable worlds, no support stations, and is outside your standard patrol routes. We have removed your ability to communicate with the rest of the Imperium. You are, in military terms, completely alone." "You expect me to believe that a single human vessel could accomplish this?" scoffed Xanvor. Jensen allowed a small smile. "Who said anything about a single vessel?" On cue, 5 Phantom-class ships deactivated their stealth systems, appearing as if from nowhere around the scattered Draconid fleet, each positioned strategically to target the largest capital ships. "Commander," Park whispered from the sensor station, "the lead Draconid vessel is charging its main cannon. Targeting solutions locked on the Phantom 03. Jensen nodded, having expected this. The Draconids had maintained their power through fear for millennia. They wouldn't surrender it without a demonstration. "I understand this is difficult for you to process," Jensen said to Xanfor. "Your civilization has spent thousands of years convincing itself of its inherent superiority. To discover that a primitive species has not only matched but exceeded your capabilities is psychologically challenging." "Enough," roared Xanfor. "Whatever technology you've stolen, whatever tricks you're employing, they will not save you or your pathetic world. This fleet represents just a fraction of the Imperium's might. Even if you destroy us here, 1,000 more ships will follow." "I'm not going to destroy you, Commander Xanfor," Jensen replied calmly. "I'm going to educate you." On the Indomitable, Xanfor gave the order to fire. The massive warship's main cannon, a graviton accelerator capable of shattering moons, discharged its devastating energy at the nearest human vessel. The beam never reached its target. Instead, the energy seemed to bend around the human ship, as if space itself was refusing to carry the attack to its destination. "What happened?" demanded Xanfor. "Unknown, Commander," replied his weapons officer. "The beam diverted, as if the space between us and the target was folded somehow." "Fire again. All batteries." The Indomitable unleashed its full arsenal. Plasma torpedoes, quantum disruptors, and graviton beams lashed out toward the small human vessel. The result was the same. None reached their target. "Now," said the human commander's voice, still calm over the communication channel, "allow me to demonstrate why your approach to this situation has been unwise." One of the human vessels, identical to the others in its strange, flowing design that seemed to shimmer between solid and energy states, moved toward the edge of the Draconid fleet. It didn't fire weapons. It simply touched a Draconid cruiser. The moment of contact was brief, almost gentle. Then the cruiser began to change. Its hull, comprised of alloys developed over thousands of years of Draconid metallurgy, began to transform. The transformation spread like a wave across the vessel's surface until, within minutes, the entire cruiser had been converted into something else. "What have you done?" whispered Xanfor, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. "We call it molecular reprogramming," replied Jensen, "a direct application of the cipher's understanding of matter at the quantum level. Your cruiser hasn't been destroyed. It's been rewritten." The transformed cruiser now pulsed with the same ethereal energy as the human vessels. Its weapons systems had disappeared, replaced by smooth surfaces that defied Draconid scanning technology. "The crew?" demanded Xanfor. "Unharmed," assured Jensen. "Though I imagine they're quite confused. You'll find that your internal communications are still functional. You may confirm this yourself." Xanfor gestured to his communications officer, who quickly established contact with the transformed vessel. The face of its captain appeared on a secondary screen, visibly shaken but very much alive. "Commander," the captain reported, "the ship, it's responding to us. The controls have changed, but they seem to adapt to our thoughts. And the propulsion system, it feels alive somehow." Alina Reyes watched the encounter from Icarus base, her gaze fixed on the tactical displays showing the standoff in the Verilis system. Beside her stood Admiral Marcus Chen, overall commander of Earth's unified defense forces and the highest-ranking military officer involved with Project Icarus. "It's working," she murmured, almost to herself. "The cipher's transformation protocols are functioning exactly as projected." "And the crew integration?" asked Chen, his weathered face betraying none of the anxiety she knew he must be feeling. "Seamless, according to the telemetry. The Draconid neural structures are actually adapting faster than human ones did during our trials. It's fascinating. Their binary brain stems allow for more rapid integration with the quantum interface. Chen nodded slowly. And they'll understand. Really understand. Elena knew what he was asking. This wasn't just about technology or military advantage. It was about breaking the cycle of conquest and subjugation that had defined galactic civilization for millennia. Yes, she answered. The cipher doesn't just transform technology. It transforms understanding. The crew of that vessel will comprehend what the cipher is, where it came from, and why it was hidden on Earth. They'll become the first Draconids in 20,000 years to know the truth about their own history. And they won't be the last, added Chen grimly. In the Verilis system, the standoff had evolved into an extraordinary exchange. The transformed Draconid cruiser, now designated the Enlightened by its own crew, had begun transmitting data to the rest of the fleet, data that contradicted everything the Draconids had been taught about their empire's history. These records can't be accurate, insisted Zanvor, staring at the stream of information flooding his display. The Imperium didn't begin as a refugee civilization. We weren't. Created as weapons. The cipher doesn't lie, Commander, Jensen replied, his tone gentler now. It's a repository of knowledge compiled by those you call the Ancients, the original spacefaring civilization of this galaxy. They didn't disappear. They evolved beyond physical form. But before they did, they created caretakers to watch over developing worlds. The Draconids, whispered Zanvor. Yes. Your species was genetically engineered for intelligence, longevity, and adaptability. You were meant to guide younger species to help them avoid the mistakes of the past. Somewhere along the way, guidance became control. Control became conquest. Zanvor's normally rigid posture slumped slightly as the implications washed over him. And the humans, where do you fit in this revelation? We were an experiment, explained Jensen. The Ancients seeded thousands of worlds with life, but Earth was special. A laboratory where evolution was allowed to proceed with minimal interference. They wanted to see what would emerge naturally, without the engineering that created species like yours. And they left this cipher for you to find. Not exactly, Jensen said. The cipher was meant to be found by whoever inherited stewardship of the galaxy. It contains the collective knowledge of the Ancients, their science, their history, their mistakes. It was buried on Earth because they believed no one would look for it here. Because we thought you were primitive, Zanvor concluded. Exactly. 3 months later, the Lena stood on a platform in the newly constructed Unity Station, orbiting Earth at the L1 Lagrange point. Beside her were representatives from 17 different species, former subjects of the Draconid Imperium, now members of what was being called the Concordance of Free Worlds. And standing directly across from her was Zanvor, now serving as the representative of the reformed Draconid Conclave. The integration process is proceeding faster than we anticipated, he reported, his voice carrying none of the arrogance that had once been the hallmark of Draconid communication. Over 60% of our fleet has been transformed. The knowledge contained within the cipher has been illuminating for my people. And those who resist? Asked Zoral, a representative of the avian Thraxi species. Fewer each day, replied Zanvor. As the transformed vessels return to our core worlds, their crews share what they've learned. It's difficult to maintain delusions of natural superiority when faced with irrefutable evidence to the contrary. Elena stepped forward. The purpose of this gathering isn't to assign blame or seek reparations. The cipher's knowledge makes it clear that cycles of vengeance and retribution have destroyed civilizations before. What matters now is what we build together. The humans speak wisdom, agreed Zoral, her feathered crest rising in the Thraxi gesture of respect. For millennia, my people believed we were inherently lesser beings, destined to serve. Now we understand that all sentient life in this galaxy shares a common origin, a common purpose. Jensen, standing off to the side of the platform, caught Elena's eye. They shared a brief look, one that contained all the complex emotions of the past months. Relief that Earth had survived, wonder at the knowledge they now possessed, concern about the responsibility they'd assumed. "The Phantom Fleet will begin its mission next month," announced Admiral Chen, bringing the focus back to practical matters. 6 ships, each carrying representatives from all member species of the Concordance, will explore the regions beyond known space. The cipher contains references to other repositories of ancient knowledge, perhaps even to the ancients themselves. "And the rest of us," added Sanvor, "will begin the work of restructuring a galaxy that has known only hierarchy and domination for too long. It will not be easy." "Nothing worthwhile ever is," said Elena. Later, standing alone in an observation dome overlooking Earth, Jensen contemplated how quickly everything had changed. Less than a year ago, humanity had been isolated, unaware of its place in a galaxy dominated by an empire that regarded them as primitive curiosities. Now they were at the center of a fundamental transformation of galactic civilization. "Heavy thoughts?" asked Elena, joining him at the viewport. "Just wondering if we did the right thing," he admitted. "The cipher gave us power beyond anything we were prepared for. Power corrupted the Draconids over time. What makes us different?" Elena considered this. "Maybe nothing," she said finally. "Maybe we'll make the same mistakes they did, given enough time. But I think the difference is that we know their history. We've seen the consequences. And we're not alone," Jensen added. "The Concordance isn't human-dominated. It's truly cooperative." "Thanks to you," Elena reminded him. "Your decision not to simply destroy the Draconid fleet when you had the chance. That's what made this possible." Jensen shook his head. "It wasn't noble. It was practical. The cipher showed us that destruction only leads to more destruction. The only way forward was transformation." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the blue-green planet rotate slowly beneath them. Somewhere down there, people were going about their lives, many still adjusting to the reality that humanity was not alone in the universe, and that they now stood at the forefront of a new galactic order. "Do you think they're still out there?" Jensen asked suddenly. "The ancients?" Elena smiled slightly. "The cipher suggests they evolved beyond physical form, beyond the constraints of time and space as we understand them. If that's true, they never truly left, watching us, waiting to see what we do with their legacy." "Maybe," Elena agreed, "or maybe they've moved on completely, leaving the galaxy in the hands of their children. All of us, humans and Draconids alike." A notification chimed softly, informing them that the Phantom was ready for its next mission. Jensen took one last look at Earth before turning away from the viewport. "Either way," he said, "they left us quite the inheritance. And quite the responsibility," added Elena. Together, they walked toward the docking bay where the ship that had changed everything waited. Not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as explorers, carrying the hope of a galaxy that was, for the first time in millennia, awakening to its true potential. In the vast darkness of space, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter.